Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, what's up?
So hello, everybody. I'm Alleluia Panis with KULARTS. We are in my living room today talking to Jonathan Mercado, one of the principal dancers of KULARTS projects. And just to get to know him a little bit better. You know, you see him performing in his costume, working really hard. So John, tell us a little bit about your growing up in the Bay. Where are you from? What's your family like? Where did they migrate? Did you migrate?
So my dad is from Novaliches and my mom's from Batangas. And they both came here in the 80s. And it's funny, they actually met out here in Mountain View. So I grew up in San Jose, and then I moved up to San Francisco
For college?
For college, yep. So I went to SF State. And then from SF State, then I've been in San Francisco, and then I'm now currently in Oakland. So my mom's a nurse. She's now a retired nurse for San Jose Medical Center. And then my dad is kind of like a computer engineer. They were like grown adults there. They just came out here. They wanted to move to America, and then that was like their.
I mean, they didn't go to school here.
No, they completed all their studies in the Philippines. My mom actually started out in New Jersey, and she was like, it's way too cold. I need to get the heck out of here. And then she was like, I'm going to go to California. And then that point on is when she met my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about how you got into dance. I mean, when you talk about first of all, when you talk about your brother being into sports, maybe I know that you are also into sports, but not necessarily team sport.
Yeah.
Right? You're more like boxing and
more
taekwondo, whatever. I don't know whether you're into taekwondo, but you're in boxing and eskrima, like more of that kind of sports.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm like more of the athletics of sports is what intrigues me, but he's like team player, like all that stuff, right? But like I was more growing up even into a lot of the more I wouldn't say isolated, but definitely
like solo
sports, right? So it'd be currently it's Muay Thai and boxing, and then Eskrima VSCK system, and then
you do tennis.
Yeah. And then I do tennis, and that's also a solo game mentally, you know. So it's just you and your opponent. So that's like my kind of realm of stuff. And then even in dance, in those aspects of it, of being doing solo.
So your first dance experience.
First dance experience was when my parents forced me to dance in front of the relatives.
Doing what kind of dance?
Just random stuff, you know. Like they just ask you, like, it's like play some music and move, and I was like,
did they throw money at you?
And I tried the moonwalk, and I tried to do all that other stuff, right? So that was kind of the intro of
so how old were you when that was happening?
I was like maybe like
five,
5, 6. But no one in our family really dances, so it's just the irony of me being the only dancer and then the entertainer within the family, right?
So I wanted to move back to, you were 4, 5, whatever, and you were this dancer boy.
Yeah.
You know, that everybody probably paid attention to and clapped and all that. But how did you feel as a kid dancing for the relatives and them enjoying it?
Oh man, it was fun for a moment. When I was in high school, my first intro was breakdancing, like hands down, because it was funny because it was all the Filipino kids that were doing it, right? So it was all the Filipino kids that were doing it in the like mezzanine foyer area of our high school, and we just meet up after class and then we just learn what we can, right? Like we didn't have like YouTube or anything back then, so one of our homies at the time had like a DVD. And then we were just like watching DVDs, or we would, one of our other mates, his dad was actually like an OG, like a breaker back in the day. So he would like teach us some stuff. And that was kind of like the intro of what we kind of understood it as and where we can learn it from. Because before it was always like, I'm just doing moves for the sake of doing moves, right? I could do this like spinny thingy on the ground, but now we have like vocabulary, right? From the evolution of, from us going from breakdancing, we went into more choreography stuff. So that, pop, we did some pop and lock stuff, and then we did more choreography based. And then it would always be us. We'd be the ones that were, and just like, we were like the entertainers.
From
like,
where did you? Who did
school.
you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you performed a lot in high school then?
Yeah, we were like the dudes that were doing it for Powder Puff Cheerleading, or Spirit Squad, like all that stuff. We were like the guys that were just like, all right, like y'all are gonna win already. Like it's not gonna even be any competition, because like we were constantly training and stuff. There's one guy. At least I see him on IG. I haven't really kept up with him anymore, but his name was Brian Subijano, and then he was still dancing, and he was basically our mentor during that time. And then I think I still see him on his like IG videos and stuff. So it's great to see that he's still doing it. But as far as I know, like most of the other folks are kind of like moved on to different outlets and stuff now. After our like rehearsal or dance rehearsal or whatever, we're like, we're just gonna freestyle for like an hour or like 30 minutes or whatever, for whatever we can. And that's kind of what still sparked me for the most part about dance, because of its freestyle aspect of it.
Okay.
I was introduced to folkloric dance, Philippine dance, initially was 4th grade Tinikling Cultural Day. I mean, it was 4th grade Cultural Day, and then all the other Filipinos within our group were just like, we need to do Tinikling. And that was, of course, it's always going to be Tinikling, right, as your first one. So we did Tinikling, and then afterwards, I never heard of it ever again until college. And then once I got to college, then it was PCN. It was like dance groups like Barangay Dance Company and Parangal Dance Company, seeing other groups like Lika, or like there was like a whole exposure once I got into college. But what really shaped my like college experience wasn't so much like the academics of everything, but it was all of the organizational work that was happening on that really shaped more of the my interest in culture. Because I wasn't learning folk dances or anything within the classroom. Like no one was really talking about any of that kind of stuff. That had to happen outside of the classroom space. And most of those things were just like gonna be social interactions, like the same thing that I experienced when I was in college, where it's like, well, you know, we're just gonna like kind of freestyle, we're just gonna try stuff. It's like, oh, or we have an open space here, we're gonna practice like, I don't know, Maria Clara or whatever. We're just gonna practice something, and then if you want to learn, go for it. And actually that's what sparked me to go to SF State, because SF State had a specific college of ethnic studies. So it was just like, I wanted to learn more about that, learn more about culture, learn about all the disconnection that was happening. And then essentially like a lot of people during that time frame, or even now, is just like, what's our identity? Like, who are we as a people? Why wasn't I in the history books? And SF State, Asian American Studies, Ethnic Studies, like cultivates that and really tries to prioritize it, you know? So it's like, for it to be at the forefront of a lot of the conversation, anytime you mention SF State, like, it's like at College of Ethnic Studies, you know, how much it was fought for, how much it was like really established, and how much they're still even trying to fight now, you know? It's just like, it's such a pivotal thing that definitely can't be like just put onto the side as something that didn't change a lot of folks when they went to college. Definitely, traditionally speaking, in terms of like how my parents went to college, or my brother went to college, like it was on the focus of a path going towards like a certain job career, right? And I didn't really look at it directly like that. It was more so like my path of exploring who I am as a person. Like that's how my college experience was, and how much now that I'm like deeply affected by that, and all the other pathways that were opened up to be able to, to tap into. But yeah, in the traditional sense, it's not, like, I never really considered SF State to be really that traditional of a college because of it having the ethnic studies and Asian American studies, and also the encouragement of developing your identity and developing more of your culture. So the fact that that was like one of my main focuses while I was there is like, and having those PCNs and having those other companies like come in and like teach during PCN and whatnot, like really opened up the floodgates of Philippine culture, right?
So okay, let's talk about your professional experience then. Like so you're now a principal member or artist or dancer, or I don't know what parangal is with Parangal Dance Company, and you're a principal dancer with KULARTS. So let's talk about you touring with Parangal in particular. And I know that you toured in North Carolina, right? And also in Monarch, which is like a huge accolade for anybody to be able, non-hula performers to perform there. And did you do LA as well, or any of the more local, or more within the States, within California?
No, I think those were like the two biggest ones.
The two big ones.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think I'm thinking Monarch. I mean, how is that? How did that feel to perform, in this hallowed grounds of hula dancing in Hilo, and to be so honored to be invited and participate in that? What was that like? What were your great moments?
My greatest experiences at Monarch, interestingly enough, wasn't so much the performance on the stage. It was definitely the seeing how strong the culture is, how strong the dance is for hula, and being in the presence of all of that. Because this is also my first time going to Monarch and hearing about Monarch, honestly. So to be there, to know how deeply rooted it is and how valued it was, and it still is valued, was huge for me. Because like, for the most part, we're still trying to kind of like pick out whatever's available for Philippine culture, and Philippine dance and stuff. And granted, I feel like there's definitely a lot of progression now for Philippine folk dance and Philippine dance in general. But to see it so strong at Monarch blew my mind away.
Well, what's the difference with that and North Carolina, South Carolina?
North Carolina? I want to say it's North Carolina. It's because we're presenting the culture to them. My most memorable experience in North Carolina was when we were walking in the parade and a little Filipino girl came up to me and was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen this before." And because a lot of the times people just associate folk dance with just like tinikling or barrio stuff, right? And I'm dressed up in like sagayan attire, or sagayan or something, right? And then it became like a spark for them. It was just like this whole idea of, okay, there's so much more to, like, for especially in North Carolina, there was like, oh, there's so much more about the Philippines than I ever thought there was going to be. And for my experiences there, it was like, you're going to, once you watch us, you're going to know at least that there is more about Philippine culture than you think there is.
So let me talk about another tour I know that you did. You were with a hip hop group.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of it, but you toured Nepal and Thailand.
Yeah.
So, which is a kind of a very different, company altogether. Tell us a little bit more about that, the name of the company, and how did that work out?
So when I had my experiences with traveling to Nepal and Thailand, it was with this group called All the Way Live. and there was a collaboration with my work called Dinosaurs, and I was granted the chance to be able to go to Nepal and go to Thailand for, I want to say it was about 2 weeks, 1 week in Nepal, 1 week in Thailand. And that was actually really intense because it was also shortly after the disasters that hit Nepal. So it was a different place than we ever imagined, honestly. It's like you see everything on like TV and whatnot, but to actually be there was like so emotional. But what was tight about that experience is that, so this group is formulated of folks that are like constant practitioners, and big ups to them for the respect for all the stuff that they do, of the different aspects of what formulates hip hop dance, right? Or street dance, or all the terminologies. So, but I came in kind of more with a choreographic and folkloric background, right? And the amount of connection that was happening. So what I didn't know is that they also have like a small but strong community out there of specifically breakdancers. So just to see even that was like completely awe-inspiring, because there's just like all the stuff that I see in like the barrios of the Philippines where we're just like, it's like kicking it with our cardboard, and then when we just have music playing and we're just like freestyling. And that was like the joy of it all, was us being able to essentially all celebrate in that way.
Was it all hip hop? Kind of like, is that just the interaction, or were you doing some humanitarian stuff, or no?
No, it was just all. It was all.
And how do you know how that came about?
I know that they do tours and stuff, jumping from different countries and whatnot. I think Nepal was just one of the ones that they planned for, so that's how it worked out. But it was also like there was part of it where it was like some donations and stuff, where because of the whole disaster.
Was it an earthquake? What was it?
I want to say it was an earthquake. Yeah, but it was like, yeah, it was pretty bad. But yeah, so I had my experiences out there with hip hop, with street dance, with and funny enough, essentially that was like our language, right? Because we didn't have, there was also a disconnect between languages. Like we did have a guide that spoke English well, but for the most part it was like we were just like, hey, and then you get the next one, all right. So we're all like kind of speaking to each other in that way, and that's how we found like a common bond and chemistry. And that's what was really tight about that tour for both for Nepal specifically. And in Thailand we actually went more to schools, and we were dancing more with like kids and stuff. It was more organized in the sense of it being like at rallies and whatnot. Honestly, after that trip, where I started getting my disconnection from a lot of hip hop culture, because it was just like, as cool as it was and as great of an experience, I was just like, I can't speak in this language, in this movement anymore, the way that the way that I can honor it, and also go out to other people and be able to present it to them, that's
a really beautiful encapsulation of that feel. But at the same time, it has informed as well your language of movement.
Totally.
And so moving into your sagayan practice, let's just talk briefly about how you first got started with sagayan. So let's talk about the life of sagayan for you, from the beginning to where you're at now. No, let's just start where you started.
Yeah, I mean the life the life of sagayan it's funny because it does have like its own lifespan right now, right? Like there's been an evolution of sagayan, because I first learned sagayan during PCN in like 2014 or 2012. No, it was like early on, right? So I first learned it, but of course this is choreographed. This was just like what other...
Where did you learn it from?
I forgot where I learned it from, but it came from Panangal. And eventually I learned it from Panangal. And then I found out, and then the evolution of that was like, oh, it was Faisal. And then it's just like, oh, but this is Faisal's like contemporary sagayan. And this is like his like different ones. And then, so it's funny because that's how like my understanding of sagayan like really started to evolve. So sagayan being a pre-Islamic dance from Maguindanao, and then it also being rooted within, and this is one of the many parts of the regalia, but yeah, the kapasiti, and then it also being a dance rooted in ritual. When I first learned performative sagayan was in PCN over at SF State, and it was like just kind of one of those offshoot dances where I was just like, oh, this was like super cool, right? Like I was interested because there was like all of the regalia and all the stuff that you had to wear. And then it was also framed back then as like, this is a warrior dance of the Philippines. And it was like, that's it, right? Cool. Ever since then, it pretty much like stuck with me, because then now, I want to say it stuck with me as a way of like, I feel like there's so much more to this, right? So the evolution of it went, and this is all the performative aspect of it, right? So learning from Eric, Eric Solano of Barangal Dance Company, and then we learned this new version before we went to Marry Monarch. So,
and who choreographed that one?
That was Eric and Bapa Danny.
Palanduyan?
No.
Oh, from
the Makabimbam group in the Philippines. So that's where he first learned it, and also witnessed like the first movement. Which is now called like Sagayan Galilang, right? Which is more of a celebratory, like festival, like kind of the fun stuff. So that eventually started like evolving. We just got like kind of understanding more and more of it. And that's like all of the performative celebratory ones, right? And then we get into the spiritual one, right? Which is the one that is rooted within Ipat, which is rooted within a lot of spiritual practice, and also is rooted just like with this understanding of like this whole higher self and divine being, right? And that was experienced during our time in the Philippines when we went to Cotabato, and then we...
What year was that?
Experienced Ipat. 2018?
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, 2018, and then when we went back for 2020. So yeah, right before like
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. So when we did 2018 and 2020, both in Cotabato. So
let's talk about the 2018 trip for you. Moments. What are the significant moments?
It's not even a fair question to ask me. What are your significant moments of this transformational thing that it did for you in the Philippines? I don't know. It was a transformational experience. But for the most part, the most transformational experience was Ipat. And it also just like the connection with Sagayan and understanding like to be able to go to the source of where it came from, where a dance came from, and knowing it, and also its raw, and understanding it from its raw state is like something I've never experienced before, like in my life. So to be there for Ipat, to slowly start and I'm on this journey of understanding what Sagayan is still, and I have during Ipat, and I told you this before, where it was like one of the one of the Ipot rituals where we walk in and then I have this whole trance-like experience. And I have a crocodile snap like right in front of my face, and like my whole world changed like immediately afterwards, because it was just like, what is my connection now here? Like, whereas like, and before I didn't really, honestly, I just didn't believe, or connect any of that stuff together until like it pretty much bit the air right in front of me, and it was just like, yo, like follow me. So what happened within that vision was the crocodile snap, and then scared the hell out of me. And then I kind of got out, I started crying, and then all of a sudden, like I tried going back into it, and then it's swimming away, right? And for the most part, it's always been this vision of like, almost as if I'm chasing the crocodile still, like I'm chasing what the culture, for me, it's been symbolic in a way of like, where I'm still learning more about the culture, and I'm also still like it's guiding me, right, to all these. And in moments when I feel a lot of clarity, like it comes back, right? Like, and it happens most of the time when I'm dancing sagayan. And I've spoken to this before about how I've had like a lot of blackout moments during sagayan, because I'm just like bliss. I'm like in a state of bliss of being able to dance it, right? And that's the beauty of sagayan in many aspects of it, right? From doing the performative aspect to doing the ritual, is just like the dance itself has transcended all of these different aspects of people's lives.
Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty powerful,
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
So
And
it's like, yeah, and it's
rare.
It's super, like, it's healing, it's strong, it's masculine, it's feminine, you know, it's celebratory, and it's also like, you know, down-rooted, right? So to have all those different aspects within a specific, like just within one dance, and also knowing that everyone dances sagayan differently, is just amazing.
You went to Ritual in 2018 in
2018.
Cotabato, the first tribal tour.
Yeah.
And then it took a
It
whole
took
year.
like all of 2019 to
Right.
understand what I went through.
Right. And
Right.
then we went back in 2020. And then tell us a little bit more about that development
Yeah.
of your Sagayan journey.
2019 was like coming back and just being scared as heck of what I experienced. Also trying to come to terms with that fear and why is it fearful? And then also like learning more about how to dance sagayan, like connectively dance with sagayan. You know, not just like, oh, I'm just doing it for the sake of movement. It's like, no, how am I like embodying and being a vessel for this dance and for the whole cultural aspect of it, right? Because of course, like I'm not Mindanao, so it's just like, okay, what did I experience? Like 2019 was like a whole freaking process year of like, you know, so it was like, I couldn't help, of course, to jump back onto the opportunity of going back in 2020, because it was just like, I need to see how far I've come. Well,
in some ways, it's actually 2 years, because we went early 2018.
Yeah.
And then you had all of 6x9.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that was a whole other
You have all of 6x9,
process
then it's
experience.
2019, and then we didn't go until 2020.
Why are we doing all that? Yeah. So it was a much longer time then, because going into that experience of 2018 and experiencing that rawness and going to the source for the very first time, and then being able to have 2019 basically to process, and then going back in 2020 to experience Ipot again, right? And more so understand how much like I've come mentally, because Ipot is a ritual of healing, right? So it was like really trying to understand what I needed healing from, and for the most part, I thought like really surface level stuff until it started getting like super deep, and I won't get into it now, but that's why it took all of 2019 to like really process what that was, until 2020 came, and then we got there's two like amazing experiences that happened in 2020, where we did we went to the Muhammad family's house to be able to dance, and that was awesome.
That was performative.
That was performative. So we are like, now we're in it, right? So we're in it with understanding that there's a performative aspect of it and there's the spiritual aspect of it. And then we did both in that trip, right? So now I'm able to identify that there's two separate aspects of it. So we went to Ryan's house, or we went to the Muhammad household, and it's like the dopest, just like the coolest thing is like, hey, I hear you dance sagayan, yeah. Here, we'll just give you some stuff, and then yeah, you can dance. And I was like, it brought me back like to being a kid again, you know, where I was just like, I'm gonna go dance in front of these relatives, you know, that I don't really know that well, but it's just like, let's do it. But it was also one of those things where like there's an aura within that space, and these are performers that live this, right?
And they're masters.
And they're masters. Mm-hmm. You know, they're masters. They live the culture. They breathe it. This is their livelihood. So, of course, it's like some next level stuff. You know, it's just like, that's cute. You know how to dance like a young, right? Like, it was just like, it was like cool.
Because all the little kids are dancing.
Yeah, all the little kids, and they're killing it. Like, and they're amazing. And it's just like that whole aspect of it is like, this is what it could look like. You know, this is like just the whole aspect of what sagayan is, right?
But did you ever feel like they were like, let's see what you can do? I mean, they weren't cocky. They were really sweet, but
they were really not. I mean, it was a
you were more nervous.
like dummy, humbling experience for me to even be asked to do it, right? Because I'm like, I'm nowhere in my head. I'm already like, I'm nowhere near like the level of you guys, but I'm down to have fun about it. So let's just go. And in my aspect, it was just like, they're like, cool, this American boy knows how to do sagayan. Let's see what it looks like. And of course, the person that I dance with isn't just like one of the random kids or whatever. It was like, oh yeah, you're going to dance with Ryan Mohammed, the friggin' sagayan champion for the last 4 years. And I'm like, sure. You know, so to have that experience, and also just that have that, like, it's really different aura when you do it performatively, because like there's this also aspect of like really enjoying yourself, you know, like it's really blissful in one sense of its term, where it's like it's blissful where you're having fun, you're enjoying the dance, you're just enjoying each other's company, and at the same time it's just like you're getting to really just do it. You know, you're not like perform. It's not like you're ready. You're doing a performance. You know what I mean? It's just like, for me during that time, it was like, we're all just gonna freestyle right now. You know? Right. And when you come into that aspect of it, being able to just like freestyle, like, and you're not coming into it with choreography or whatever, or planned 8 count or etc., then you just kind of have fun with it. Then it's so interesting where it could go. Right? The
way I see it is that when you're doing the performative with Ryan and all those guys in the Muhammad house, it was more like joy, right? Yeah. And whereas when you go to the ritual with Ishmael and all of that, that is bliss. That's bliss.
Oh yeah. And see, that's what I was saying is like, for me, it's bliss in itself has two different, can have like those descriptions.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I mean, you know, but the joy in the Muhammad house is so apparent, you know, and that kind of like celebratory, and you know, and you're having fun. You're freestyling. You're checking things out. The question I have for you is that watching Ryan perform, or any of the other cats there, was there any significant difference in the style, in the way that they, or the choreography that they performed in comparison to the choreographic sagayan that you learned in, under Parangal or under other people?
Yeah. The Muhammad family's style of movement is very different from how I learned, because and that's the beauty of sagayan performatively, is like everyone dances, like there's the base fundamentals of movement, but the way that everyone dances it is different. Like it's the same thing that you could listen or see someone breaking or doing anything like that, and they know like basic movement and stuff, but their style and their composure and the way that they interpret the movement is different, right? Like so, like Ryan's movement, for example, was like super smooth, like smooth effort, like effortless, like playful in a sense, at least during my like 2 minutes of dancing with him, right? And then my experience was, it's not like it was as, it was like I'm still, it's like you're the dude that's just like, you're still learning right now, and I can't fairly put my style together, because if I would love to see the Makabimbam group, members of the Makabimbam group, and then Muhammad's group, and see how their styles are different, rather than because my style now is also informed from a lot of my like hip hop background, and my street dance background, and me being born in America, and my sense of musicality. So my style is automatically starting to become way different from even what I learned from Eric the first time, and then from the Makabimbam group, and from even Faisal too. So it's like we're having these conversations and this vocabulary of movement from sagayan now, but it is very much ingrained within your own style and approach to it. So, and that's what I learned when I was out there, was like each of the sagayan groups are all different, like for competition reasons, like they're all different, because as much as they're all on the same story, they're all dancing sagayan, everyone's gonna have their own style and swag.
Well, also like the competition sagayan, the solo is solo, so it's like, ballet has solo competitions as well. So yes, there is stuff, but there's also choreography. Like I hate to just put it as stylistic, because then it negates kind of like the kind of work that they have to put together to create choreography, right? So and then you have like the street dancing and also like the group dancing, which is definitely choreographed. Larger groups. Yeah, and it's based on who choreographed it. So is it style? I don't know. It's somebody's work. Whatever it is, it's somebody's work.
Okay.
So, which means then that as you are growing up in the sagayan tradition, as you're trying to find your way in there, that your experiences also informs your choreography. Do we call it style? I don't know, but I think it's something that folks can learn, because it's informed by particular experience and particular technique. But I think I'm trying to remove it from this whole thing that it just happens, just by itself.
Oh yeah.
That it requires so much learning. In order for it to happen. There's definitely choreographic, choreographic sagayan. They have hundreds of dancers doing the same movement, and I can really see when most of the dance choreography of sagayan in this side, when I see Faisal's choreography, it's like, that's Faisal's choreography.
Faisal,
It's a piece that he repeats doing, teaches to everybody.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Ryan, I felt like, I think that the maturity of the dancing in Cotabato, like in outside of that area, is always called a warrior dance. So automatically people think that you have to be always hard. You always have to jump around and be hard and strike and all of that. Ryan kind of just kills all of that. A lot of them kind of like, you can be super manly and be super sexy. And super, masculine but tender and gentle, which I think is like, you gotta be a master to be able to tread that.
You definitely do. Heck yeah.
So John, I wanted to talk a little bit about your own, the coming together of all of the experiences, of all of the techniques, since the beginning of your dance or movement, into the kind of like this beautiful sagayan notion within you. And one of the performances that seemed really pivotal, at least from an audience point of view, was the post-colonial toolkit.
Yeah. The survival
kit in 2019 at Luggage Store. Can you?
Yeah. So the 2019 post-colonial survival kit was an amazing project because of its exploratory nature. And also, Wilfred, of course, who's behind the camera right now, is like, yeah, we're going to film you, but we're going to film different elements of who you are, right? And then there was like the sagayan aspect. And then, of course, there's also my like choreographic hip hop, whatever aspect, right? And then it's all blend. And then he was just like, well, we're just going to blend that all together because that's who you are. I mean, that's like, that's part of who you are. And as much as like, I kind of understood that mentally, to physically see it was very like, man, I don't know how to describe this, but in it was like very just authentic to who I was and my experiences. And that dance and collaboration like really reflected a lot of that because of so luckily we got Joel from the Boli to be doing the drums, and then Wawai was it on Hegalung or what?
No, that's a Tambulalang.
Oh, the Tambulalang. Yeah, the big one, right? And then the music that I chose initially to start off was also from Datu, which was the group from Toronto, or is now Alauna, right? So they changed their name. So Alauna, and then so I'm in this whole diasporic like bliss at this point, right? Like we came into it kind of having an understanding of what was going to go down, but for the most part, it was like this culmination of different cultures and experiences, and just kind of like throw it down on the floor.
So just to kind of recap, you started out shooting clips of you performing sagayan and then performing street dance or hip hop or contemporary dance at the beach or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then Wilfred basically edited it into this beautiful artwork. And then when it was on exhibit at the Luggage Store, it had other elements to it. You then performed, and actually on top of the artwork that was not really planned, the bliss part happens.
Yeah.
And so in some ways it's very similar to ritual, where you start a few days before to get started, and then it kind of culminates. So in some ways it really mirrored that experience, except of course it's completely different in that you were at the beach with Wilfred and you're shooting it, and it's an artistic mindset. And then you come and everything kind of comes together in this kind of like funnel. How did it feel? I mean, you did a performance there, then you went into the space.
So like you said, it was like, it's culminative of like everything that I've experienced. And this is in 2019 when I just said I'm going through a lot of stuff of trying to explore healing, going through traumas, going through whatever, and then understanding a little bit, trying to really dive into what my identity is and chase the crocodile, right? And then this comes around, right? So it couldn't have come at like a more better time of just being able to really like just dive into it all, right? Just like, what's your movement look like? What does your authentic movement look like for you, for me, for actually not for anybody else. Like, I wasn't dancing for anybody. Like, for the most part, it was just me trying to be honest with myself.
So you weren't trying to do sagayan with the regalia and, you know, kind of like reproduce that performative sagayan. You're just there, kind of like, this is I'm gonna perform my authentic self through this, to all the different forms that I know, but kind of funneled into a sagayan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because then what happened when I performed, like, the main thing was that I was wearing the kapasiti, and then I had a long kumpilan, right? And then I was wearing like a Ilam Manila, like, Bay Area based artist, right? And then on top of that, I was dancing with Joel and Wawai to Wilfred's installation in the background. Like, so it couldn't have felt like more of it being like my movement. When I say I was trying to be honest with myself, it was because, like, these are the, like you said, like, these are the things that I know. And these are the things that are informing my movement, and that are informing my choreography, and are informing my practices. And it wasn't so much being true specifically to, because when I do sagayan, there's a part of me where it's just like, I need to at least, like, give the respect to sagayan as its entirety, right? Because, like, it has its own culture, it has its own life, right? But for me to be able to be allowed and asked to be honest with myself at that kind of a space was like, what does that look like? That looks like sagayan, that looks like hip hop, that looks like explosive work, that looks like eskrima, you know, that looks like a lot. It's looking like a lot of different things. And to be able to even look back on that footage and just be like, yo, like, who is that? That's me. Like, that's Jonathan. That's John that's dancing right now.
I mean, that is such a perfect way to kind of close this conversation, because that particular experience is a compilation. It's like the future. You know, it's like the past and the future and everything else coming together in this one spot, in this moment, through your body and through us as we are watching you perform or move. And I think that is the identity that is you, and it is the future. You're not trying to create or recreate an experience, like a physical kind of surface experience in, you know, performative sagayan or spiritual sagayan. Is basically bringing that all in, and the spiritual sagayan, that is what's actually it's all about, because it's about healing, and you is in your journey in trying to figure out who I am. What is my identity as a man right now, as a Filipino man in America, not being a second-class citizen and having all of these knowledges, embodying into this person to be able to explore that and explode, you know, as a performance. But not just a performance, hey, come look at me, but a performance for yourself is, to me, glorious. And thank you for making that happen.
Yeah. I mean, thank y'all for putting on the piece. Oh, yeah, and of course, like, Balukto's work, and everyone was out there.
Yeah.
So it's just like...
Because the master artists were there, and even them, like, they're living now, you know. Yeah, they're still living in their villages, but they're not like their ancestors, you know. We like to keep them in little boxes, but these people still exist and still thriving and creating and, you know, moving on, but maintaining. And so, you know, I think that is kind of like the acceptance of you as an American Filipino, right? to me is really powerful to be able to like, okay, I think I know now who I am, and it's not going to stop here. It will continue to evolve.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're still rooted.
Yeah.
To be in the presence of people who are still, maintaining the culture, but knowing that there are also like modern people that have their cell phones, they have their, they have their computers, they speak English, some of them. That's a most beautiful thing to experience, to be accepted.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like when you say evolution and future of, right? It's like, so it encapsulates so much of like what we are experiencing with those folks. Like, because they're, like you said, like they're very much in the now. Like, it's not like we don't need to over romanticize like this whole aspect of what the Philippines was and etc. It's just like, no, there's a lot of progressiveness. There's a lot of things that they're doing now that is like relevant, and is gonna also like evolve what they're like. Culture's always changing, right? And we can't keep on saying that this is just gonna be, like, who knows what sagayan's gonna look like in 2, 3 more years, 5 more years, 10 more years, like when we're past our lifetime, like, and everything could look so different, but it's also the aspect of knowing that there are masters, there are people out there that are like really exploring and asking those questions.
I think the big thing with that is that your particular performance at Luggage Store in 2019 is definitely sagayan, but it's rooted. See, that's, I think that a lot of times people say, well, culture is changing, so they'll just dump whatever in there. So I think there's a rootedness in the performance and the experience that you were in at that moment, in sagayan, in the idea of sagayan, in the concept of sagayan, the spirit of sagayan, that does not change over time.
Yeah.
So, I think that the understanding needs to be really clear. So having said that, and then just, you have a project right now with Parangal. Can you talk a little bit about that in closing? What are your next projects?
Yeah, okay. So the current upcoming project with Parangal Dance Company is basically this sagayan specific immersion, right? Where where we're practicing, and hopefully going to be able to go to the Philippines and specifically focus on just sagayan, learning
in Mindanao.
In Mindanao, like specifically just that, because we've gone for the immersions and stuff, but like this is just going to be like focused on even learning more about it and interacting.
Are you planning to go just in Mindanao area? Are you also going to Maranao, to Lanao?
No, I think it's just it's just Maguindanao, Sagayan's focus. So not the Maranao.
And when does the film or the documentary plan to be completed?
I want to say it was going to be in 2022, but with COVID right now, we'll see, because our trip is still estimated to be in January. So we'll see if that, but we'll see if that still happens right now.
So the project is you all learning sagayan and dancing together with master artists sagayan in Cotabato, Maguindanaoan culture, and then it's video documentary that's gonna hopefully be out by December 2022.
So cross fingers and everything. Keep a lookout for it. Look out for workshops. Look out for any footage, stuff like that. So it's constantly growing and shifting. We're doing there's also been performances that'll also inform the work, to inform our evolution of the beginning of the project to the end of the project. So there's also that linear aspect of it too. So it's really exciting, because we're also getting a lot of involvement too from people outside of just the Bay Area So, I think there's been some involvement with folks from Australia. There's folks in the Philippines, So,
And what is your involvement?
Just learning, learning, practicing, or just trying to see what sagayan's all about. And yeah, so we'll see. I'm excited for it. But yeah, that's like one of the big sagayan projects that's coming up. And then we'll see where we go from there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us this afternoon. So long.
Yeah. Bye. Go away. Just
Peace
kidding.
out.
Late.